I don't have like vote totals. Did you get that?
We can. All right. Well, welcome to the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. We are here this afternoon, starting our working committee this week. We're going to hear the initial presentation to a number of the charter change bills that are up on our wall. And first off, we have Representative Nicole here to tell us a little bit about H488, which is charter change for the town of Ludlow. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. For the record, Logan Nicole, representative from Ludlow, also representing Mount Holly and Shrewsbury. So Ludlow, the town of Ludlow does not have a charter. So this would be adopting a charter, and it is a single issue charter. The select board, we still vote on the floor for town meeting, all issues. And the town and the select board would like the ability to send things to Australian ballot at their discretion. They would like the ability to send things that they feel are bigger issues that merit, more voters weighing in to Australian ballot. Floor votes lately have been better. We've had pretty good numbers. At the last town meeting, I think we had like over 200 people. But, and it almost, depending on what your census is, I think we're down to like 1,900 active voters. And so 200 people is not real representative. We love town meeting. We love the engagement in the community, the community process. And we are getting better about, we have at least the YouTube option with our local public access, but, there's not engagement through that at all, real feedback, much feedback through that. They would just love the ability to vote things by Australian ballot when they think it's merits, having that option. That's basically it. We have a village, a designated village. And so the village has a very extensive charter. That is not something necessarily coming up soon, but I have been pushing to merge the town and the village. And so that may be something that I bring to you, within this session next year at some point, just to give you that heads up. But other than that, for now, it's just this.
And this was from the November.
Yes.
Was the vote, so it was the general election.
Yeah, we voted on it at the general election in November. We were unsure. I think there was nobody that was working in the town office, the municipal office, that knew the charter process. And so I think there was some confusion about like timelines, and they may not have submitted everything exactly on time to the Secretary of State, which is why this may have come through a different process than some other charter changes, but yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Representative Nicole? Well, we'll get in touch with you if we have any further questions. Thanks for joining us and giving the sales pitch. So is this Ashley? Join us to tell us about H488.
Of course. Good afternoon, everybody. For the record, my name is Ashley Angel. I am the law clerk for the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I'm here to talk to you today about H488, right? Yeah. So the purpose of this bill is to approve the adoption of the charter of the town of Ludlow to authorize the town select board to warn articles by floor vote or by Australian ballot. Generally, under 17 VSA 2680, unless specifically required by statute, the Australian ballot system may not apply to a municipality for their annual or special meeting unless the municipality votes to have it apply. But once the town officially elects to use the Australian ballot system, they can vote officers in, vote for town budgets, et cetera, via Australian ballot unless they vote otherwise. So under section 1 of this bill is the General Assembly approval for this Ludlow charter. Prior to the election on November 8th, 2022, they did not yet have a charter. And the voters approved of this last November, of course, as you heard earlier. Section 2 is an addition to Title 24 Appendix, Chapter 125. On page 1, line 18, Section 1 is the charter and general law applications of the charter. It establishes the charter, as I stated, within the Vermont statutes and provides the town of Ludlow with all the rights and duties as provided by the statutes. On page 2, line 4 is section 2, which is the powers of the select board. This section establishes the select board of the town of Ludlow. And it also establishes that the select board has the powers and duties to establish town meeting articles by floor vote or by Australian ballot. And lastly, section 3 is the effective date. And once the governor signs this into law, it'll be effective on passage.
Thank you. Ashley, do you know if this was set up in the voting process as two articles in the sense, number one, to allow the town to set up a charter, number two, to allow the select board the authority that's given in here, or was it just one vote?
One vote.
One vote. Okay, thanks.
I'm wondering if do we have access to the packet? I didn't look at everything that was, because I'd love to see how the article is actually warned.
You will have to go to the town to ask for that documentation. They submitted it to the Secretary of State, but the Vermont State Archives and Records Administration did not deliver an official packet because the town missed the filing deadline. So all that we received from the Secretary of State was a letter to the town telling them that they had defaulted under the statutory deadline and that their charter would not be passed on to the General Assembly.
Okay. Which doesn't preclude us from hearing a charter bill and getting corrected from it. Okay. Fair enough. So a little bit of dog ate my homework from the town of Ludlow. All right.
Wait,
Go
I have a question.
ahead.
I don't know who I'm asking this question to, but I believe that at some point we heard from Legislative Council that you couldn't have an Australian ballot vote to change from floor vote to an Australian ballot vote, that it needed to be a floor vote. Is that true? Somebody? No?
Under 17 VSA 2680, section E, it states that Australian ballot cannot be used at the same election at which Australian ballot is approved by the voters. So you can pose the question to the voters potentially on an Australian ballot, but then you can't hold the rest of the meeting because you're not allowed to use an Australian ballot to actually hold the election as. So basically it's a floor vote to approve Australian ballot and then Australian ballot future elections. In this case, it doesn't matter because it's all coming to the General Assembly and you can grant powers and notwithstand 17 VSA 2680 subsection E, which is what this charter does.
All right, that was my question, because I thought maybe it was a workaround for that because you're approving a charter, not a vote.
The other thing you may be thinking about is that when we did our work on Act 1,
Yeah,
we made it clear that if a town that votes from the floor uses temporary authority and votes by Australian ballot, that they can't use the temporary Australian ballot authority to vote in a charter change.
I mean, this is just nerd stuff. This isn't me actually thinking that this should be approved. I'm just really interested in it.
So what this really gets at though, Representative Waters Evans, that I think is important for us as we look at bills like this and we think about the sort of what comes after Act 1 is that there is a tension between Australian ballot and floor votes, the preservation of the floor vote as a tradition versus opening up more people potentially participating and answering questions. So as much as
Yeah.
I deeply am a nerd on this stuff
Yeah.
too, and we all should be being on this committee, that it is a really huge question. But I think if the people of the town of Ludlow voted to give their select board the ability to choose, I think that's a pretty.
Yeah. And did they vote by Australian ballot or floor vote?
Yes, you have to vote all charter changes by Australian.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, I think we will return to this one in our next pass on charter changes. But it sounds like there's a committee where any other questions on the Ludlow charter change?
Uber complex.
All right. Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you, Representative.
Cole.
Thank you.
Right. So next up is H489. This is an approval of amendment to the Shelburne Charter, and Mr. Suskin's here. If you'd like to take the chair, and Representative Rumstead, did you want to come up as well?
Just came for moral support.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to House Gov Ops and Military Affairs. Welcome to the committee. Could you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Here, for the record, my name is Lee Suskin. I'm a former state board administrator and former chair of Shelburne's Ethics Committee. I now serve on the town's Finance Committee, and I'm here at the request of Representative Brumstead and our Select Board Chair, Michael Ashew, to introduce H489 to you. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to provide you with the information on the town of Shelburne's decision to amend the town charter to authorize its select board to levy a 1% tax on sales, meals, and alcoholic beverages and rooms. The town seeks enactment of H489 to enable this town charter amendment. I'll take less than 10 minutes to provide the committee with some background on the factors that the town considered before adoption. Excuse me a second. Anticipated additional revenue generated, the town's policy on how the additional revenue will be spent, and steps taken to inform all residents, businesses, and voters about the local sales tax before the successful election. In April of 2022, a year ago, the Shelburne Select Board held a retreat with its theme, Shelburne 2035, long-term steps to achieving town's goals. Many members of the public participated. The participants learned of anticipated millions of dollars in capital expenses facing the Shelburne in the next 5 to 7 years. At the retreat, the select board identified a local option tax as a possible revenue source, but they knew very little about it. So they asked the town's finance committee to gain an understanding of the local option tax, to explore whether it will aid the town to continue to provide the high level and quality of municipal services to residents, businesses, and visitors and tourists to our community. The finance committee accepted the challenge. We learned that just as the state sales tax exempts many basic necessities from the tax, so will the town. We learned that state and not the town will administer and collect the tax. And that the town and that the local tax will not place any additional burdens on retailers to report sales and to have to submit the tax. We learned that the state keeps 30% of receipts to fund the payment of lieu of taxes pilot program. And we learned that the local tax does include online and e-commerce retail sales. The Finance Committee used the State Tax Department sales data to project that Shelburne's annual local tax revenue to total approximately $1 million. To place that amount in perspective, Shelburne now collects a total of $9.8 million, approximately 80% of it from property taxes, and the balance from fees. The Finance Committee also examined visitor tourist activity in the town. Shelburne Farms, Shelburne Museum, Teddy Bear Factory alone attract hundreds of thousands of visitors annually. We determined that a local option tax will enable visitors to the town to help pay for the town's, their share of the town's roads, facilities, and services that they use while in Shelburne. We learned that 24 of Vermont's municipalities already levy a local option tax, including St. Albans City, St. Albans Town, Colchester, South Hero, and 6 of our neighboring municipalities all have adopted lot.
Sorry, sir, may I just interrupt you one sec? South Hero is actually working on one.
Oh, working on one.
Correct.
Oh,
It's my district, so yeah, I've been talking.
okay.
Just so you know.
Apologies.
No, that's okay. I just didn't want you to.
There's a, okay. Well, good luck. I hope.
Yeah, they're working on, there's some.
Hope you figure it out.
Senate with theirs that's, we're gonna get the language.
Yeah, and Tucker, I bet, is champing at the bit to potentially clarify, because I know there are towns like St. Albans City had an old local option on just, I think it was just alcohol. And then when we did our charter change in the recent last couple of years, we added that onto the regular sales and improvement. So it's one of those things where there are towns that have extant old local option taxes, and we could go down a rabbit hole in
Sure.
that. But I think to Mr. Suskin's point is that there are a bunch of towns that have a similar.
Right.
similar local
I just want us as a committee to have that clarity.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly Williston and Colchester, that we have the big box stores,
Yeah.
are
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
benefiting. And I know a lot of Shelburne people have been shopping there and not avoiding it because of the local option tax. That's for sure. I think that I received that information about South Hero from the tax department's website, but I may be wrong.
Could be that there, because it shows it in works, I don't know,
Okay.
but okay.
So then the select board asked the finance committee to present what we learned to town residents and businesses to identify possible advantages and disadvantages in our discussions with them, to answer questions and to hear their concerns. We did so for a period of multiple months. We notified local churches, businesses, and restaurants that we would make ourselves available to present information to their congregants and employees. We produced informational handouts for distribution at our farmers market. We prepared a slideshow and used it to present information to the local Rotary, the Business and Professional Association, and to senior living facilities. After informing and hearing from residents and businesses, we recommended that the select board amend the charter to authorize the tax. The select board then held their own public meetings and took their own public comments. And then they determined that it was important to diversify the community's high reliance on property tax revenues with a dependable revenue source, and decided to place it before the voters. In response to those comments and to ease concerns as to how additional revenue would be spent, the select board adopted a policy restricting lot revenue to capital expenditures, debt reduction, reserve funds for capital projects, repairs or other emergency needs related to emergency needs related to a declared disaster, and land conservation and open space protections. The select board decided to place the article on the town ballot, asking voters to decide whether to adopt an addition to the charter with the language you see before you in H 489. Note that thanks to guidance from Representative Brumsted, the select board made sure to adopt language that this committee and the legislature have approved for other municipalities in the past. The voters decided to amend the charter change, with 57.6% voting to do so by Australian ballot. The town needs lot revenue to pay for fire and rescue upgrades, road equipment, bike and pedestrian paths, repairs and installation of our buildings to reduce heating bills and our use of fossil fuels, and to pay for capital improvements that the town voters want and have approved in recent years. The town requests your committee vote yes on H 489 so that the town can do so. Any questions?
When was the vote taken?
Town meeting day,
Town meeting day of
the
22.
of this year, yes.
Oh, so just happened. Oh, so this just happened.
It passed, right, March 3rd or 4th, I don't know, I worked the polls.
Great. So you were ready.
You're ready. And we've notified the tax department, and if you could get this to the governor for signature this, in the next month or two, we're gonna be able to start it in July.
Yeah, you said the percentage of the vote for the yes votes. What was the total number of?
I'm sorry, I don't have the total with me, but I think we had about 3,000 voters, and it was, whatever, 56% of that is, it was something like 1,700 to 1,300. I can't give you specifically, but that information was provided to the Secretary of State and the tax department in the materials, and the Secretary of State certified it to you.
That we should have that.
You want me to get that to you?
No, we should be.
Yeah, it should be in your file.
Get that before we take action. Well, I think we'll invite legislative counsel if there aren't any more questions for Mr. Susskind. Thank you very much for coming and giving us the local perspective.
Welcome.
And welcome back.
Good afternoon, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Counsel. H 489 amends the Shelburne Charter to allow the town to impose a local option tax on sales, meals, alcoholic beverages, and rooms. You will note that just as St. Albans did recently, the charter provision references the general law 24 VSA section 138 for purposes of administration and collection of the tax. That means that this will be collected by the Department of Taxes in the same manner as all other local option taxes that are adopted under the general law, which does require 90 days notice to the Department of Taxes, and then will allow the department to start collecting it on the first day of the next fiscal quarter, which may be July 1st or maybe a later date. You might want to hear from the Department of Taxes on that. 70-30 split, to remind you all of how 24 VSA 138 works: 70% to the municipality, 30% to the payment in lieu of taxes fund. That's the state fund that then pays municipalities that host state property that is not subject to the local property tax. There are per return deductions that the Department of Taxes takes out, but like I said, 70% generally minus that per return fee goes to the municipality.
Tucker, is there anything different about this language that you saw with St. Albans? It looks identical to me, but.
It is 100% identical.
Okay. Any other questions for legislative counsel? Okay, so unless anybody gets in touch with me by the end of the day today, I think I'm going to put this one in the bucket of ones that we'll put up for markup and vote the next time that we take a look at it. Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think we're running right on, just about on time, 1 minute behind. Thank you, Shelburne delegation. We're going to continue some charter work tomorrow, so absent some surprise from the committee, I think we'll get this moved along. It does have to stop in Ways and Means, and then so it'll have a little bit of a longer ride than some of our other charter changes, but we'll get it on its way soon. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
All right. So Representative LaBounty, would you like to step up and introduce yourself for the record and tell us a little bit about, this is H490. We're going really going right in the numerical order here with the bills. I love it. This is the merger of the village of Lindenville and the town of Linden. Wow, okay.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. My name is Representative Dennis LeBounty, and I represent the towns of Linden, Sutton, Newark, Sheffield, and Wheelock. Just a little bit of a history. The town of Linden charter was done in 1791, and the village of Lindenville was in 1880. The population of the village is a little over 1,100. And the town, the non-village of the town is a little over 4,300. Our current system requires two different management bodies, two different crews to manage our infrastructure, and two sets of administrative procedure. Combining those efforts into one leadership function, one infrastructure maintenance group, and one administrative path will yield a much better coordinated focus on our needs and opportunities. Redundancies can be eliminated and time can be freed up for our employees to do more productive work for the entire tax base. The select board and the village trustees who approved the draft merger 6-1 on September 26, 2021, and the merger steering committee, which drafted the proposal over the summer, said it was a matter of efficiency and fairness. The 9-member merger steering committee worked for 4 months on the plan. The committee concluded that a single municipality government would be more efficient, more effective, and more equitable for all 5,491 residents and 223 businesses currently in Linden and Lindenville. For a property tax, for a $200,000 property, town taxpayers will have an increase of $189, and the village taxpayer would pay $825 less, according to the 2022 numbers. So this will be a big help for those in the villages and plus those small businesses with this tax cut. As it is now, it's they pay about half and half, for the tax grand list, and this will make it a little bit more fair. Most notably, the merger proposal would combine the 5-person town highway department and 4-person village public works into a 9-person highway department responsible for all the town's infrastructure. Expected results from the merger: more comprehensive management review and coordination, equalization of tax burden, service enhancements, operational savings. Changes due to merger will dissolve the Village of Lindenville charter and create a new charter for the town of Linden. The governance moved from 2 boards, 3 selectmen for the town, and 5 trustees for the village to 1 governing board for the town with 5 members and 1 commission for the electric utility with 3 members. Water and wastewater management decisions will move from the 2 boards to 1 new select board. Budgets move from 3 budgets, townwide, village, town highway, to a single budget for all functions. Tax base and associated grand lists move from 3 to 1. The tax rates, village taxpayers will see a 41 decrease. Non-village taxpayers will see a 0.095 increase. The grand list for the village is only about 1/5 of the non-village, but their expenses are about half. The merger charter includes a provision to transition these rates over 3 years. No change due to merger. Municipal service for combined town-village already exists for police, fire, library, cemetery, listers, planning, and zoning. Officers, the clerk, treasurer, and administrator are the same person for the town and the village, although officially the offices are separate. Fee for water, wastewater, electricity will not.
Get a quick clarifying question. So are you saying that today, as it stands, the clerk treasurer is the same for both the village and the town? Wow. Okay. That's very unusual. Thank you.
Fees for water, wastewater, electricity will not change because there are enterprise funds and financed by consumer fees, not property taxes. The investigation and the preparation for this public agreement, extensively investigation and analysis in 2005, 2006, merger proposal approved in 2006 by a vote of 927 to 838. Then 3 months later, overturned by a vote of 695 to 435. Renewed interest shown in 2001 and 2022 in public hearing, which triggered the new investigative committee formed and adjustments were suggested to 2006 proposal. Several public hearings were held and voters approved to unite Linden and Lindenville into a single municipality entity with a vote of 978 to 651 in the 2022 November general elections. 59% of the town voters and 84% of the villagers okayed the merger.
978 to 651. Is that the number?
It was, yes.
So this is one being a 36-page bill that we probably won't expedite and want to take a little bit more testimony on. I know that former Representative Feltus, for instance, asked to come in, and imagine we'd want to get some local officials to come in too. But it sounds like there's pretty broad support from it in the community from what you said.
Yeah.
Questions from the committee for Representative Bounty? Has there been any kind of like controversy about this, or does it seem like people kind of 15 years ago, they had a look at it, said, not now, and then they kind of said, oh, maybe this is a good idea?
I think that's what, people hate change, right? And, to bring the town, and of course, it's going to raise the people that do not live in town, going to raise their taxes, and nobody wants their taxes raised. But, myself, I live out of town. So it's going to raise my taxes. But this is the right thing to do because it's only fair, that we share all expenses, and it's the best for the community, overall. And by merging, I think it will save some funds in the long run by having it all merged together. So, which is good. And in full disclosure, you just mentioned former Representative Marty Feltus, who did send me some notes to put this together, so, because she was very instrumental in these changes. And if you're listening, hi, Marty. But no, I want to thank her so much, for helping out, because she has a tremendous amount of experience in this field. And I really appreciate her reaching out to me. As I was going over the charter change on Sunday, and I was putting notes together, later on that afternoon, my email popped up and it was Marty who gave me some other notes. So I just integrated from what I had from what she had. So again, I would just want to, just give a thank you to Marty for helping me with this.
Great. Well, stick around. I'm going to invite Legislative Council to give us a little bit of the highlights of what's in here, a preview of what will be a more thorough walk through the next time we pick this up in the next few days.
Thank you.
But thank you, Representative Bounty, for being here.
All right, good afternoon.
Gave Tucker a heart attack. I just want to apologize because it's like we're gonna have 20 minutes to do an intro and a walkthrough. I didn't mean an actual line by line walkthrough of the whole bill, but I wanted to get a sense anyway of the flavor of what's in this merger and how it kind of fits into other charter change work that we're doing.
Well, thank you for helping me escape what would have been the fastest 36-page walkthrough of all time through some pretty dense language. And ultimately the dissolution of a municipal corporation. Up front, because this is your first merger, or at least your first proper merger of municipalities this biennium, I'll give you a refresher that there is a unique procedure in place for the merger of municipalities that requires separate votes. The charter packet for this merger does contain all of the information that you may want to inspect in the future regarding how merger votes are carried out
and how charters that result from merger votes are ultimately approved by the voters and presented to the General Assembly. High-level overview when you're dealing with mergers, and this applies especially to H490. You have three things essentially happening here. The first is, in order for the municipalities to merge, either one or both of the former municipalities have to disappear. And in this case, the village is disappearing. So step one, erase some form of municipal government, which is what part of this bill does. So the village of Lyndonville is actually a chartered municipality right now. So you're going to repeal that charter and erase specific statutory reference to the village's powers and structure and replace it instead with the new, step two, Town of Linden Charter. The town under this model is going to be absorbing all of the municipal authority of the village. You're codifying it here along with some new powers. So that leads me to the third big picture thing to keep in mind with mergers, is that there's going to be a transition for both municipalities, depending on the words on the page here, with respect to municipal services, the form of municipal government, potentially, not really in this case, but always something to keep in mind, and authority that is wielded by this municipal corporation, potentially the delegation of some new legislative authority, which I believe there is in this charter, and finally, enforcement. So I'll flag each one of those things as we go along. And something unique to keep in mind with this particular merger is that you have a very special form of municipal enterprise within Linden, which is a municipal utility that also has codified charter authority built into H490. So I'll flag that high level. You're going to want to do a deep dive into the utility provisions in here. There are already existing electric utility statutory provisions in the Village of Lyndonville Charter. It might be helpful to do a deep dive with a side-by-side to see what is changing, and perhaps to have an attorney that deals with utilities explain what some of the deviations are from the general law governing municipal utilities, specifically your electric utilities. At least so that this committee understands, as you're moving this forward, that there might be policy decisions with respect to the municipal utility that are built into H490.
Representative Hoover.
So at this point, it would be creation of a 2 utility area. The village has their own, and then it's expanded. Is it still Green Mountain Power or whatever, or do they serve?
I'm not sure what the existing jurisdictional boundaries of the utility are, but I'm almost certain that they are allowed to provide extraterritorial service unless they're the smallest electric utility in the history of the state of Vermont.
We might be able to find out. I don't know if you know this, Representative Bounty, but my experience with my limited professional life that the Lyndonville Electric Utility serves some parts of the town. Yeah.
Great.
They service Ryan.
Yeah. I think that's the idea in the charter, though, is that the town is absorbing all of the village's existing assets and responsibilities and liabilities related to the utility, right? Interesting. We will want to learn more about that. Representative Higley.
Tucker, will we be able to figure out a tax increase for one or the other? I know Essex Town's taxes went up quite a bit after the merger. Is that something that we can figure out as well going through this?
It sounds like there is already either a study done or some analysis that Representative LaBounty can share, or that perhaps representatives from the town and former village can share about what the tax increase would be for property owners in the town.
Thanks.
It is kind of the opposite scenario, though, that we dealt with Essex, because with Essex, the village was turning into a city and leaving the town, whereas here, they're all becoming one.
Right.
So there will be kind of like as Representative LaBounty was describing, there'll be an evening into one tax rate. because the grand list will expand. So instead of splitting the grand list, they're actually all coming together, right? Interesting. We'll learn a lot going through this.
So I led you down the slope to the utility, and the step right before that was about enforcement and services. So that's a perfect question to start hiking back up the hill here, to quickly note that there are transitional provisions in here that cover apportionment for services and the transition to the new merged municipality for financial purposes. Enforcement. There's an interesting transition in here that I wanted to flag for you and to keep your eye on some of the enforcement of the new authority in the town. And it caught my eye for sure, and that's that the town proposes in this charter to allow the penalty for ordinances to be up to $10,000 and to classify violation of ordinances as a criminal misdemeanor. For reference, general law allows the maximum criminal penalty to be an $800 fine. And the Village of Lyndonville's charter expressly states that the maximum criminal penalty is $200. So when I talked about transitions in both municipalities under this merger and the differences in enforcement, people in the village formerly subject to village ordinances could see the difference between ordinance enforcement go from $200 to potentially $10,000 per offense, with each subsequent day qualifying under these charter terms as a separate offense. So, in the realm of ordinances, another high-level thing to flag here is that the town of Linden is the newest municipality proposing that ordinances can be adopted by initiative referendum, which allows voters to petition for and then vote to adopt ordinances excluding the legislative body of the municipality. They have a somewhat unique section in here that also allows voters to repeal ordinances by petition and referendum. Those are the high-level points that I wanted to cover. The town does have an interesting set of legislative bodies in the town with separate jurisdictional authority. So, for example, we have the Cobley Library with their separate board of trustees. And they also have a set of trustees set aside specifically for a trust fund that is administered, the Sanborn School Fund has a set of separate trustees with authority separate from the legislative body of the town.
Okay.
All that to note that there are some interesting structures in Linden and Lyndonville. And when we do the deeper dive, I'll flag each one of those interesting and unique pieces of their frame of government, enforcement authority, and of course, their unique municipal utility.
Well, we will turn to this one with a full walkthrough, scheduled testimony from folks who are involved with the, sounds like there have been multiple study committees done and formed over the years, and also get some testimony from maybe one of your colleagues. I don't know, is it Ellen that does the utility, bulk of the utility?
Yes, it would be Ellen.
Okay. I'm actually really interested in learning a little bit more about how the municipal utility and the town kind of fit in as we explore this potential merger. So Representative Bounty will pick this back up in the next few days.
Thank you.
There's a lot in this charter. I like it.
Yeah, this is gonna be.
Yeah, I like this one. This is good. This is some work for us to do. All right. So we're just 1 minute behind. We're so close. Our last one before we take a break at 2:15, we're going to hear an introduction of H495, and I'll invite Representatives Shy and McGill to come and tell us a little bit about what's going on in Middlebury.
I'll wait till you're.
That's up to you and to the members here. I have to go present the bill at another committee. So if I walk out in the middle of what you're saying.
It's not because you're not.
It's not because I don't appreciate what.
You know this will be riveting. Okay. Thanks. So Representative Robin Scheid from Middlebury, representing Addison 1, which covers almost all of Middlebury except.
Representative Jubilee McGill. I represent Addison 5, which is Bridport, Wadebridge, New Haven, and then I have a little slice of Middlebury as well.
Thanks to those of you who were on this committee last year in the redistricting. So it's nice to have another person. Middlebury, this is my third time coming to you with something that's simple and pretty straightforward. I just want to say for the record that, if I'm showing up, it's not usually terribly complicated.
You caught the tail end of the 30.
I did. So I just want you to understand that this is 2 and a third pages long. Yeah. So at town meeting this year, the town of Middlebury went to vote, among many things, was to vote on changing the town treasurer from an elected position to an appointed position. That's the high level piece of it. The vote was 861 voted yes and 192 voted no. So 4.5 times the number of people voted yes as voted no. Being a numbers person, I had wanted to figure all that out. So basically, and I'm sure when Tucker goes over it, we repeal the town treasurer as being an elected officer. We now change the language to say that the treasurer shall be appointed by the select board, add them to the list of appointed officers. And then as a transitional provision, we currently have somebody who's there kind of in a transitional basis, and either they'll appoint somebody before, but no later than the Thursday after town meeting next year, we'll have an appointed treasurer. So that's what we're doing. Personally, I am very glad we're doing this because as our town manager said, for one thing, you can do background checks when you're hiring somebody. When you have an elected person, you get what you get, and all kinds of people can run for office who have varying degrees of experience. And when I was in my previous job running economic development and working on planning grants and things for the town, with the town, if you don't have a good audit that's timely, you're not eligible. I remember talking to Josh Hanford up in DHCD about this, and we were not able to take advantage of some grants, for example, because our audit was not cleaned up in time to actually be eligible for a year's worth of grants. So I actually know firsthand that it's really important to have, and we had a very nice person as treasurer and all of that, but you need to have somebody who's really quite experienced in being the treasurer, especially as we get more complicated and are one of the larger communities. So I am fully in support of this for those and other reasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it all. Yeah, I think the biggest is just kind of oversight. Really, there's in other areas in Addison County, there were some instances even with fraud. And so this just really gives folks more oversight over who and protection over who's going to be handling that sensitive area.
Does Middlebury currently have an elected clerk and is keeping an elected clerk and a treasurer that's separate, or is?
So I don't know how many years ago now, I've lost track, because the clerk, she was, when my friend became the town clerk, she was the town clerk and the treasurer, and they split that off a while ago, 10, 12 years ago. And I don't think we had to do a charter change to do that. I don't know. I wasn't in the legislature at the time, but it's been quite a long time. They're two separate positions. We still elect a town clerk. We appoint, and we currently elect a town treasurer, but we will be, we hope, with the help of this body, appointing one.
So the idea here is Middlebury currently has two separate elected positions that are not held by the same person.
That's correct.
And the clerk is staying the way it is. There's still silent on the clerk. The treasurer is going from elected to appointed.
That's right. That's the sum total of the, see, 3 for 3.
Yeah, even we saw 4 charter bills ahead of you, and I
was looking at your agenda.
Very impressed.
No, that seems really straightforward. So, and the vote was definitely definitive. That a lot of that.
It's always helpful when the vote is clear. So.
Any questions for the committee from our Middlebury reps? No, all right. It was just that easy. I think this one, absent objection from the committee, will be one that we put up for a markup and vote pretty quickly unless
Great.
Tucker and Ashley tell me something that's really surprising about this one.
I'd be surprised if that's the case, so let us know. But that we appreciate you
Yes.
even just taking the time. And if you can move it on through quickly and get it off your plate, one less thing.
I think we're rapidly going to have the most bills voted out.
You are.
A little bit of we're your committee on appropriations moves a lot of bills out because there's a lot of other people's bills.
Right.
But I think we're starting to get to a place where we're going to give you all a run for your money. And
I think you have. I think you're going to need a new board pretty soon.
In human services, we're on like our fourth bill.
You're whoppers though.
There's quantity, there's complexity, there's time. Thank you all for what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Having great colors today.
Oh, thank you.
And your mask is coordinated well. Accessorize.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Is this an ask?
It's,
Come and give us the official.
Hey, the G might be silent too.
All right, so we're gonna get the official word here from Legislative Council in which hopefully we won't be told that this is.
Hello again, for the record, Ashley Angel, Law Clerk, Office of the Legislative Council. So as you heard, it's a pretty straightforward bill. So this bill proposes to approve the amendment of the charter to the town of Middlebury. And it removes the position of town treasurer from the list of elective appointed officers and, list of elective officers, and adds it to the appointed officers section. So section 1, as we all know, it provides for the General Assembly to approve the voter approval of the change to the Middlebury Charter. Voters approved this on March 7th, 2023 by a landslide, as you heard. So section 2, this section amends chapter 127 of title 24 appendix of the VSA. On page 2, line 3, section 302 removes the position of town treasurer from the elected town officers list. Section 305, the treasurer section strikes the provision that the treasurer is to be elected annually at the town meeting and will serve a 3-year term. It adds that the treasurer is to be appointed by the select board. On page 2, line 12, you'll see section 306, which is the list of appointed officers, and just adds the town treasurer to the list. Section 3 is the transitional provision, and it allows for the select board to appoint a new treasurer at their convenience on a contractual basis. This may occur prior to next March 7th, after this amendment is approved. Section 4, of course, is the effective date, and the charter amendment will go into effect after the governor approves. Do you all have any questions?
Any questions from the committee? And I just wanted to confirm, because the bill is silent on the clerk, that the clerk exists elsewhere in the Middlebury Charter.
Yeah, I believe so. Tucker can confirm.
Yes, it exists elsewhere. It is an elected officer in the town.
So shall it remain, even if we pass this?
Hey, but isn't that the case for every town? Town clerks, no? Okay.
There's
No,
a
we
provision in
Yeah,
Title 17 in chapter 56, somewhere in the 2600 location that allows any municipality to vote to switch from elected to appointed town clerk.
I understand.
It's really only the charter municipalities that have to keep coming back to ask for this, because in the past, they chartered an elected town clerk. So now to change it, they have to ask for permission to amend the statute.
All right. So committee, we're going to take a break until 2:30, where we'll come back and hear some more introductions. I want to say for our planning purposes that I believe we could take up tomorrow, during our sort of penciled in continued charter chime, H 488, the town of Ludlow. H 48, town of Shelburne, that's their local option.
489.
And, yep, so 488, 489, and 495, which would be the town of Middlebury that we just heard. I think we are very obviously going to need pretty extensive work in order to move the Lindenville-Linden merger and really fully understand that. So we'll schedule some time and give people fair warning from the community that we're going to be doing a deeper dive on that in the future. So we'll figure out which day, but I think tomorrow we could start with those three and schedule them for a markup and vote unless there's any objection from folks.
No objection.
Okay, great. Well, that was good work and we're on time ahead of time.